things that I hammer home about on the show on a regular basis about how politics is politics, but we got to leave the kids out of this. And that part bothers me more than anything. But it's absolutely almost to the point of being mind-numbing, the fact that somebody thinks that it's going to move their argument forward by resorting to this kind of activity. I mean, it's just outrageous.
It really is. No, you don't. And there was tons of emails that were actually directed and making comments about my kids. Mainly people going to my website, which it's still up, josephsilk.com. And I've got a lot of pictures of my kids, on the campaign trail and our family photograph, and I would say a good percentage, probably 20-25% of the emails, and they were actually commenting on my kids. Everything from your kids look like little bigots too, to your kids are monsters, and even you better watch out because some of your kids look gay. I didn't understand why in the world are we dragging them into this. It has nothing to do with them. Just like you said, it's not going to help your argument whatsoever. And when I had the director of Freedom Oklahoma in, the second time, he was like, we don't condone death threats at all, and I hope you don't take these emails as a snapshot of our group. I guess he's referring to the nationwide LGBT activist as what he was talking about. And I said, I have a hard time taking it as not a snapshot, because out of hundreds of emails, there was maybe 3 or 4 from homosexuals who were legitimately asking, mature questions about the bill. And so I say, if these are the activists and this is the kind of stuff they're saying, it sure looks like a snapshot to me. And again, I go back to, hey, nobody's attacking your, freedom to be homosexual. If you want to be homosexual, go down there. I totally disagree with it. I think it's a horrible, ungodly lifestyle. But you know what? This legislation is just to protect, religious liberty. And so nobody's really attacking their way of life, but they want it to look like that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, all in all, I tend to actually think that it probably isn't indicative of the gay and lesbian community as a whole. I think basically what you see is out of so many folks, so many of them are moved to action. And unfortunately, most of them that are moved to take the kind of action are too angry to contain themselves. But still, you have to be able to make cogent points. And if you want to actually make some kind of change, you've got to be willing to have a dialogue. Attacking somebody's kids for no other reason than you're mad at them, that's not conducive to a dialogue.
Right, and that's exactly. And I don't take these emails, and there was phone calls to my office and cell phone and everything. I don't take these as a snapshot of the homosexual community. I do, however, take it as a snapshot of the homosexual activists, because there's a big difference. I have cousins that are homosexual. I have friends that are homosexual. But there's a big difference between people who are homosexual and they're just, living their life like everything, and then the homosexual activists and this movement that they are demanding that their behavior and their choice be codified and protected by law. And so between those two groups, there's a pretty large difference in the way that they act and treat people who are involved in this.
Right. Well, I absolutely agree with you. Again, knowing a few members of the community myself, I don't have any immediate family members that I know of, so if they're keeping in the closet, it's not a big deal to me. Personally, I tend to be a little more libertarian on that view. Again, it's not a lifestyle that I would condone or engage in, but I tend to think that in the end of the day, once it's all said and done, they're the ones who have to answer for what they're doing. So as long as they're not forcing me to do things that I don't feel comfortable with, that's their business. And that's been my general mentality all along. But they just don't seem to understand how it's not right to force somebody to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding if they have a sincere conviction against it. And in the case of the lady that was it Oregon or Washington? I don't remember which one now. But in the case of the lady that got all caught up with it and had her business basically shut down by the local government for her refusal to do it, she had done business with these people with years, knowing that they were homosexual for the majority of that time. She had suggested somebody else. She had bent over backwards to help them. So obviously her heart wasn't one of hate for these people. There was no conscious effort to be discriminatory towards their lifestyle. She just didn't feel comfortable because of her religious convictions at providing a service for a same-sex wedding. And some folks, the activists in particular, just don't seem to understand where these two can coincide. And the bottom line is that basic of the most libertarian tenets, and that is your rights end where my rights begin. She has every right to refuse that service. You have every right to go carry on whatever ceremony you're going to, whether the state recognizes it or not. The whole issue of same-sex marriage is something that, personally, I don't think anybody realizes. There's no constitutional right for anyone to get married, period. So all the states get to decide the criteria which they're going to recognize and give you a license to do it. So it needs to be a state issue. I personally think that the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause is a ridiculously weak argument at best, but they're going, that's the argument that's going in front of the Supreme Court upcoming soon. So,
and I agree. That's a very, very weak argument. And you're right. It's not, it's not enough for these activists that for instance, they actually found my father and I's private business, which we have a luxury vacation rental business, and we have 45 cabins up here. They're all privately owned. Well, they tracked down our management company, and some of these LGBT news groups down around the Dallas area, they started putting that website, and they said apparently these people don't want gays in their cabins, which is absurd. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've had tons of homosexuals stay in these cabins. They're all privately owned. We don't even own some. We just manage them. And now, but again, like you said, they've stayed plenty times. I mean, we know it. Now, if they wanted to come to one of the properties that we own and have a wedding there, I don't know. Maybe not. We'd have to address that when we got there. But again, even though for the past 10 years we've, our business has been, there's been homosexuals in and out of as our clients. Now they decide that we don't want gays there, and so that's what they were blasting. And they attacked the Facebook page, and they were calling the business, and it's just it's a really crazy deal.
Well, again, it appears from everything that I've seen to this point, you have become the poster child for who they want to demonize at the moment. They want to push this agenda forward. They want to make anybody who stands up on the side of the religious freedom to look like they're an antiquated monster, a throwback to pre-Reformation days. And it's sickening to me that they take that step. If you want to have the discussion, if you want to have this argument, and forgive me if I get a little repetitive on this particular point, you have to say and behave and do things in a manner that's conducive to having a discussion. You have to make a genuine effort to understand both sides of the argument.
I agree.
Naturally, you have to have been surprised at how vicious some of this was in the pushback. You said that you did expect the liberal spin, but in your wildest dreams, did you expect there would be quite so much pushback from your statement?
No, I didn't. I didn't see it. I kind of knew. Okay, Huffington Post did a deal. I was like, okay, well that, and then New York Times. And when New York Times did it, I was like, yeah, it'll probably get some attention. But I had no idea that it was gonna get this big, and it really did. It went crazy. I've received emails a lot from Canada, Switzerland, Australia, just because what happened was, New York Times spun it, and then all these LGBT news sites like the Gaily and there's the Advocate, and they took it. They started spreading it. Right Wing Watch, all these. So that's where those came in, and then the conservatives started picking up, like yourself and American Family Radio, and there was some more out in the California area, and some bloggers. And so then actually it switched, and I've received hundreds and hundreds of supporting emails that people say, we know what you're doing. It's got to be done. Keep up the good work. So I fully did not see it kind of going viral nationwide like it did.
Right. even worldwide, evidently.
Yeah.
All right, well, looking to kind of close up things with you and let you get back to your busy Sunday, I want to ask you 3 basic questions before we actually end things. Number one, looking back at all this, is there anything right now you'd still like to say that you feel like you haven't to the people that have been attacking you over this, first of all?
No, I think the people that, I really think the people that are attacking me in this type of legislation across the country, they're people that we're not going to see eye to eye on anything. And a good example of that is, on anything, with this issue. And a good example is when I was talking to, an individual at my office. He brought in an ACLU lawyer, and we were talking there, and he said, religion is made to be discriminatory. And that phrase, actually, what they're eventually going to come at the church and say, what the Bible teaches homosexuality is wrong, but you can't teach on that because that's hate speech. Because our behavior is now, they want it protected by law, and they want it to be hate speech if you consider it wrong. So that's their stance. And I've made my point, so I don't think there's anything that needs to be clarified whatsoever.
All right. Is there anything you would like to say directly to the people right now listening that have supported you through this?
Definitely. And, I've said multiple times, thank you so much for the support, the people who do understand this issue and how it relates to religious freedom and, individual rights in the United States. And I would have to say we're going to have to take a stand. There's so many people, and a lot of my circle, they're just silent on this issue because it's very, very controversial. They don't want to be painted as haters or bigots or intolerant or anything like that. But that's behind us now. You absolutely have to stand up. We have to get vocal about what's going on, and it's going to be a fight. And we're going to be painted as haters and bigots and intolerant people, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. Because what we're fighting for is freedom. That's essentially, we're fighting for freedom and limited government, religious liberty, all these principles that the United States was founded on, and they are under attack and tremendously. And if the LGBT activists win this and get their way, it will absolutely change the entire dynamics and structure of the United States. So I would just really encourage people, you're going to have to get vocal. Do it in a non-hating way. We don't hate homosexuals, whether we agree with their lifestyle or not. This is about freedom is what it's about. And so I just encourage people to get vocal and start the conversation, start the buzz, because it's coming really, really quick.
Well, I would actually go even a step further and encourage everybody to cast aside those fears of how they're going to paint you, because it's going to happen anyway. Right. Ultimately, though, when people get to know people, all that stuff tends to fall away. When you have faceless strangers across the Internet, they're going to paint you any way that they want to. They want you to be a demon. And you have to be prepared to stand up and say, I'm not the demon you think I am, but I may be worse, because by telling you the truth, I can convince people around you that maybe you're the one who should be questioned. That's what we have to be, not just vocal, not just non-hating, but be willing to stand up and stand in that line of fire regardless of what the perceived consequences could be. I've been saying this about politicians for a while now who are so concerned about being reelected, they're afraid to take a stand on something no matter what their constituents are pushing. And that was another thing that I was actually kind of glad to hear, that you were being a true voice for the people in your district when you did this. Because that's something you don't see a whole lot of anymore, or at least nowhere near as much as we should, at any rate.
Right. No, I agree. And I just piggyback on that by saying, they're gonna paint you bad. That's all there is to it. And the people want to say, hey, let's just get along and let's just coexist. Well, that's what these bills are trying to do. This bill is trying to just say, hey, if you want to be homosexual, go be homosexual. Nobody's attacking that. But they don't want that. And so so the homosexual activists, there's never going to be a mutual agreement between true conservatives who understand religious liberties, individual freedoms, and the